Today, Pakistan walks a fine line between diplomacy and escalating conflict.
Pakistan is positioning itself as a key mediator between the US and Iran.
Islamabad accusing Kabul of harboring militants behind cross-border attacks, claims which the Taliban government denies.
As Pakistan plays mediator in the US-Israeli war on Iran, we look at another conflict that appears to be escalating. I'm Kevin Hirten, and this is The Take. Hi. Before we continue with today's show, remember to leave us a comment telling us what you think about this episode. Do you think that this war has any chance of ending soon? What do you think about the conflict going on in Afghanistan and Pakistan? And let us know what stories you want us to do next. And remember, if you're on your favorite podcast app, leave us a review and a 5-star rating. It really does help the show.
I'm Osama Bin Javaid. I'm a senior correspondent for Al Jazeera English, and I'm coming to you from the newsroom.
Yes, Osama, you just came off the set doing a live shot. Can you just start us off by talking about what it's like covering this war? I mean, trying to keep up with everything that's happening. I can't be the only one who's struggling with this.
It is extraordinary. The flurry of information is just nonstop. You've got misinformation coming to you from all sides, and you really have to verify the facts and put it the correct information on air. I've been following this. I was in Geneva 1, I was in Geneva 2. I've been following the developments, whether they were taking place in Abu Dhabi or Oman, as these talks progressed, and then there was a war. And during this war, it is very difficult to ascertain facts from wishful thinking from various sides. You have to remember that there is the American version of events, there's the Iranian version of events, there's an Israeli version of events, and there's obviously a GCC version of events. So you have to combine it all and then put it into context and see who's coming from where. And we only tell our viewers once we've verified it with official sources, with people who we can name, and then we tell them the information. But as you said, it is a muddle. Just this morning, as I was doing these lives, there was information that, the Pakistanis are doing this and they've done that. And 48 hours ago, there was information that they're out of the picture completely. And none of that was really factual. So that's why we have to go back to our credible sources, officials who we recognize, people who can put on air, and then give that information to our audience.
That's why you tune into Al Jazeera. So, Osama, welcome to The Take. You have just returned from Pakistan, which is a country with an armed conflict on multiple borders, and we'll touch on both during this discussion. But I think obviously we need to start with the big one, and that is the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. And now there is big news that the U.S. and Iran have received this 2-tiered peace plan that would call a halt to the fighting. And what's amazing is it's been brokered by the Pakistan Army chief. So what can you tell us in this moment? It's about 12:30 G on Monday afternoon.
Well, the time that you put this on the airwaves, everything could have changed drastically. But having said that, I have been speaking to various official sources in Pakistan. We don't know for certain if this is 100% true that this is a Pakistani plan that is on the table. But I can tell you from senior sources in the Pakistani government is that what Pakistanis have been doing is not just carrying the messages from the Americans and the Iranians. Remember, there was an American 15-point plan initially that the Pakistanis took to the Iranians. They told them about how America wants Iran to give up its nuclear ambitions, its fissile material, its missile defense program, its influence in the proxies, and on top of that, influence in the Strait of Hormuz and not attack Gulf allies. When the Iranians came back and said, well, the Americans will need to give us guarantees that this is not going to happen again, and they will be able to stop themselves and stop Israel. There is no talk of the ballistic missiles program. They want reparations for all the damage that the war has caused, and they want autonomy over the Strait of Hormuz. So you see two maximalist positions that are poles apart from each other. But then what the Pakistanis are doing is saying that, why don't you guys come together somewhere in the middle? Find a point that you can agree upon, that you can sit across the table and then talk to each other. the Iranians say, well, we tried that twice, actually. And every time we did it, whether it was in Oman or in Geneva, the Americans and the Israelis struck us. They killed the top leadership of Iran. And that is why it is going to be a very difficult position that Pakistanis will find themselves in. But if it does happen, if it does come to fruition, it will be an extraordinary achievement for them.
Yeah. So this particular plan, it's a two-tiered approach. I guess the idea is a ceasefire, then it will be finalized days later, a couple of weeks later.
Well, the Iranians have rejected a ceasefire. They say they do not want a ceasefire. They want a comprehensive agreement. They said this was a war that was imposed upon them, and it will end on a time that they choose. And you really have to think of who are the Pakistanis talking to in Iran. It is not direct talks between the Iranians and the Americans, but essentially via Pakistan. And an official source told me that they're talking to all levels of society. They're talking to the clergy. They're talking to the diplomats. They're talking to the military leaders. And because so many people of the leadership have been killed or assassinated by Israel and the Americans, that now there is a real strengthening of their stance. They feel to have made battlefield victories. They've been able to resist the Americans and the Israelis, some of the most powerful militaries in the world. The regime change has not happened. The millions of people that were expected to come out on the streets and topple the regime, that hasn't happened. So they feel that they're in the driving seat now. And when the Pakistanis take this to the Americans, well, the Americans say, well, we're going to bomb them to the Stone Ages. It's a fifth of the energy supplies of the world, but we are the world's largest producer, and we don't care because this is a threat that they pose to us. We can go on the merits of demerits of all of those arguments, but again, this is where we are at.
Yeah.
So it is going to be an uphill battle to put any plan on the table, because a ceasefire, somebody will have to give. The Americans will have to convince the Israelis to actually cease fire. The Iranians will have to run it through their fragmented chain of command now to stop attacking people. So it is a very difficult prospect, but that it just being on the table it takes you away from the nightmare scenario which has been painted by Iran and the Americans.
Okay, so just to recap, the particulars of the plan seem pretty impossible, but you do think it's significant that there is a deal at the table, that the two sides are talking, and it looks like it's through Pakistan, through U.S. President J.D. Vance. Steve Witkoff seems to be involved, and of course on the Iranian side, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi.
Absolutely. Just before coming to this show, I was talking to a source, and they told me that diplomacy is done behind closed doors. The effective diplomacy is done between direct parties. It is not done in newspaper headlines and leaks to the media. And that is what the Pakistanis are telling me that they have hopes for, because the communication channels that they have are still open. Now, whether that transpires into an actual ceasefire or a partial reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, well, that remains to be the question as the US president continues to extend his deadlines. Remember, it was 48 hours, 5 days, 10 days, another day, another 2 days. So it appears that there's definitely impetus there. There's definitely potential inertia that is being put into it by at least the Americans. The question is, what do the Israelis want? They've indicated they don't want a ceasefire. They don't want any de-escalation. Just as I'm speaking to you, the breaking news that I was coming to you from the set was that the Israelis have again hit the South Pars gas field in Iran. And that is crucial infrastructure. Remember, it's not just about the production of gas. That gas field shared between Iran and Qatar, about 10,000 square kilometers, it is not just a source of revenue, but it is a source of livelihood. Iran is the world's fourth largest consumer of liquefied natural gas. So everything from industry to schools to every aspect of society is based on that South Pars gas that Iran needs, that the American president said that he's guaranteeing Israel will not attack. Well, here we are. And Israeli defense minister saying that, well, we've attacked it again.
And the last time that happened, it resulted in a direct retaliatory strike on Qatar's Ras Laffan facility, which accounts for 20% of all natural gas in the entire world.
And it's not just Ras Laffan. You remember what the Iranians did in response. They hit Bapco in Bahrain. They hit the Kuwaiti oil fields. They hit the UAE. They hit the Saudi Arabian facilities belonging to Aramco. And then on top of that, it was Ras Laffan. So it appears that both sides are telling each other, this is what we will do if you attack us. And so far, the Iranians have been able to follow through. And they're their stance is becoming more and more rigid, because you see 6 weeks into the war, they're still hitting Tel Aviv. They're still hitting targets. The rocket flow has slowed, but has not stopped. They're still hitting targets in the GCC. So that's why they feel that they can continue this drip, drip escalation and expand this war horizontally and let the Americans and the rest of the world feel the pain economically and in terms of their security.
And the clock is ticking at the moment because U.S. President Donald Trump has set a deadline for this agreement. This comes after posting this profanity-laden threat to open the straits, threatened that on Tuesday, when this episode airs, actually, he could blow up more bridges, more energy infrastructure. This is something that Iran has already signaled would result in retaliatory strikes on infrastructure in neighboring countries. From the Pakistani perspective, which is, as we've discussed, has been in this position as a mediator, how is this war being interpreted? I mean, not just, I guess, among officials, but among ordinary people.
Well, there are two aspects to this. First thing is what I asked, well, why Pakistan? Because the Turks have a great line of communication with Washington, D.C. The Egyptians actually have a line of communication with the Israelis, and the Turks also share a border.
Yeah.
But what I was told that it is Pakistan because it not only has a line of communication with various aspects of Iran, but it also has the weight of Saudi Arabia and GCC countries behind it. It has a unique position where it is, its field marshal is called My Favorite Field Marshal by Donald Trump, and its foreign minister can, in the same breath, go and visit the Chinese capital as well.
Yeah.
And it is a neighbor of Iran, and that is why any escalation in Iran is going to have a direct impact in Pakistan. So that answers the question of why Pakistan. The question of what Pakistan brings to the table is also because of all of these factors combined, because of the sheer population within Pakistan that has close ties with Iran, but a majority of a Sunni population which has very strong ties with Saudi Arabia. I asked a security official, what do you make of this, and where does Pakistan stand if the Saudis invoke their defense agreement? To which I was told that, how do you know that we haven't invoked that agreement already, and diplomacy is our first line of defense.
More with Osama after the break. So, Osama, let's talk about the other conflict that you have been covering, which is this war between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So just as a baseline for those who are new to this subject, Pakistan has accused the Afghan Taliban of sheltering fighters who have been launching these deadly attacks across the Pakistan border. It's then prompted Islamabad to launch airstrikes and artillery exchanges that have killed dozens, displaced thousands since late 2025. So in your reporting, you've noted that the parameters of this conflict haven't really changed all that much, but Pakistani attitudes towards the Taliban have changed considerably. Can you expand on that?
Well, this is the first time that you're hearing from Pakistani officials about their stance on Afghanistan, which is really hawkish. I was talking to some officials about the situation in Afghanistan, and I asked them that, you have a long history with the Taliban, right? And there's been this strategy that Pakistan is accused of having good Taliban versus bad Taliban. And to my surprise, this time it was a very blunt response. A security official told Al Jazeera that only good Taliban is a dead Taliban. And that is what Pakistan believes in now. It is on a path where it has shown Afghanistan's leadership under the Taliban, leniency and diplomacy in the last 4 years, and it is no longer going to be the case. So either they change attitudes or, quote, Pakistan will change it for them. And that, to me, is a sea change of attitudes of how Pakistan sees Afghanistan and how Pakistan has been reacting towards Afghanistan. Because Afghanistan, in the last 30, 40 years, has been reliant on Pakistan. Remember, before all of the refugee crisis, the world's largest refugee crisis was out of Afghanistan into Pakistan for decades. Pakistan has expelled more than 1 million of those refugees. In the last months, you've seen extreme fights break out on the border, and these attitudes are changing tremendously. So it appears that now there is very little room for diplomacy, and it is the guns that are doing the talking.
The hardening of these attitudes in Pakistan that bone-chilling quote you said earlier, only good Taliban is a dead Taliban. I mean, it must be detrimental to the prospects of a prolonged peace, but talks are happening, right? What is the latest around peace talks?
Well, the latest is that there was a low-level interaction which happened between the Pakistanis and the Afghans in Beijing, because the Chinese are interested to bring this to an end and find an amicable solution, because China sees this as detrimental to not just Pakistan's security, to its China-Pakistan economic corridor, but also to the potential of the mines and minerals that it sees in Afghanistan as well. It's not just China. The Turks have approached Pakistan and the Afghans to try and bring an end to this. The Qataris have been involved in this as well. And the Pakistanis say that their stance is very clear. And on background, somebody told me that this could be two things. One is they don't want to give up this leverage of the Pakistani Taliban that the Afghan Taliban has. And second, administratively, they might not have the capability and capacity to go after these groups. Remember, Afghanistan, since the takeover of the Taliban, the sole focus of this new entity in power, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, has been to make sure that there is unity amongst its ranks, that it doesn't show any fissures, because if that happens, then it is going to become another war of warlords rather than one monolith ruling it.
So let's wrap up, Osama. Let's end with sort of a bigger picture for Pakistan. You've spent the past days talking to officials in Islamabad, and I just wonder how they look at the map these days. I mean, talk about a complicated neighborhood, right? On one side, you have the Islamic Republic in Iran. You have Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. On the other side is Modi's India, the unresolved Kashmiri crisis. You have China to the north. They have not one, but two insurgencies basically happening within their borders in Baluchistan and in the Pashtun tribal areas. Things could escalate all over the place. How does Islamabad possibly juggle all of this?
Well, with great difficulty, I imagine, because if you sit down and as you laid out quite aptly, what the situation is for Pakistan to tiptoe around, you did not cover the economic front, because Pakistan is struggling economically as well. It has been asking for the International Monetary Fund to bail out its economy. It has been asking rich Gulf neighbors to park their money. It is poised to return about $3 billion or so to the United Arab Emirates that it has had for a number of years. So all of that combined with a burgeoning population, Pakistan finds itself in a real bind. But I think, there's opportunity in crisis, and I think that is where the Pakistanis are going from day to day. In the last few years, there's some sort of cohesion between the military and the political government, where they've been able to get some dividends with their relationships with Washington, with China, with Gulf states. They've been signing more deals. They've been bringing in some investment. They've been trying to put their economy back on track. But again, the questions that you just mentioned remain. They cannot change their neighborhood. They cannot completely control a population which continues to grow, and an economy which has been faltering, and an energy crisis which seems to be knocking on their doorsteps.
We've seen the lines at the queues at gas stations.
80% of Pakistan's energy comes from the Gulf. It has been able to, through diplomacy, secure those supply lines. So it still has the pre-crisis level of gas and petrol. But that does not mean that the danger is over. You're seeing the price of fuel, just petrol, shooting up by nearly 77% in the last 5-6 weeks.
Wow.
And that is based on oil hovering around $100 a barrel, with analysts predicting that it could go up to $200 a barrel if the crisis continues to prolong. Then you can only imagine what it would do to societies in Pakistan, to the economy of Pakistan, to the infrastructure of Pakistan. Remember, it's a huge country with a massive population, with many mouths to feed, and it sees that the only way out is through diplomacy, through dialogue. But again, all of these crises can't be solved via dialogue, and that's why you're seeing an uptick in violence, whether it comes to the Baloch insurgency or Pakistan dealing with the Taliban.
Okay. Osama Bin Javaid, thank you for coming on The Take today.
Thank you for having me.